We've all seen werewolves on screen, sharp teeth, full moons, silver bullets, but those cinematic beasts are based on real ancient, terrifying legends. From medieval, like Lycanthropy trials, to the cursed warriors of Norse mythology, to Wendigo, Dogman, even Skinwalkers. All legends still whispered about to this very day. Welcome back to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we talk about the scariest werewolf horror movies and the myths and history that made them. And with that, let's get to the list.
The Howling.
The Howling is a 1981 horror movie. Directed by Joe Dante, it's based on the novel of the same name by Gary Brandner. It stars Dee Wallace, Christopher Stone, and Patrick McNee. After a bizarre and nearly deadly encounter with a serial killer, a television newswoman is sent to a remote mountain resort whose residents may not be what they seem. Werewolves living among us, hiding within our society. The fear in this movie isn't about the transformation. Instead, it's about not knowing who you can trust. The idea that your neighbors are wolves in disguise literally is timeless. This movie makes the creature feel organized, smart, and hidden. And historically, this ties to the European lycanthrope cults in the 1500s. The Inquisition prosecuted groups believed to worship Satan and change into wolves during secret rituals. They were thought to be able to pass their powers intentionally, like a disease of the soul. And I think that's such a terrifying idea of being able to be prosecuted based on what others want to believe, about their beliefs prosecuting you. It's like you don't even have to believe what they're into for it to still cost you your life. But of all of the different werewolf movies ever made, especially the ones from the 80s, the design of the werewolves in this, their costumes and stuff are just awesome. Jack Bueller designed the costumes in this, and they are just so good, especially for this era. But they're timeless, and the whole entire look and style of this movie is timeless. This is still one of the best werewolf movies ever made, and absolutely terrifying in my opinion.
I think she's gone.
Ginger Snaps is a 2000 Canadian supernatural horror movie. Directed by John Fawcett and written by Karen Walton. It stars Emily Perkins, Catherine Isabel, and Mimi Rogers. The story's about two teenage sisters whose relationship is tested when one of them is attacked and bitten by an unknown animal. But during the next full moon, she begins to transform.
Let's get out of here. What was it? A big dog, maybe?
Lycanthropy is used as a metaphor for puberty in this film. And it's such a fascinating way of looking at the transition into adulthood. A physical and emotional transformation that we all go through. And so it makes the movie just resonate in such a profound way. But in older cultures, especially in Greek and Balkan folklore, transformations were often linked to menstruation, blood rituals, or puberty rites. In some versions, women became wolves during moonlight ceremonies, not as punishment, but as part of fertility myths. And I think this movie is scary because it's personal. The body changes without permission, and no one believes you until it's too late. It's something that we all can relate to, at least on some level. The fear of changes that lead us into the unknown. And I just think this movie does a really good job of dealing with those things and using it, like I said, as a metaphor, but still being fun and still being exciting and interesting. Because that's such a fine line and something that not every movie can pull off. Being able to convey a message and get a point across and being artistic, but also still being a horror movie and not forgetting to be creepy and scary. But I think Ginger Snaps balances those two things perfectly. Dog Soldiers is a 2002 British action horror movie, written, directed, and edited by Neil Marshall in his directorial debut. It stars Sean Pertwee, Kevin McKidd, and Emma Cleesby. During a routine nighttime training mission in the Scottish Highlands, a small squad of British soldiers finds a bloody massacre with a sole survivor, who identifies that what hunts them is werewolves.
Exactly what is it we're fighting against?
Lycanthropes.
That's werewolves to you and me.
This one is so gritty, brutal, and grounded, and the Highland setting is perfect. In Celtic mythology, warriors feared the Kusith, a ghostly green dog that hunted souls. There were also stories of wolf warriors who could become beasts in battle, often divine punishment for cowardice or betrayal. And this one's really disturbing because you see these elite soldiers going up against these monsters, but the terrifying idea that in the wild, you're not the apex predator, and even badass warriors are no match for these beasts. I love this movie so much. The action, the intensity, it's gory, it's violent, it's brutal. It keeps you on the edge of your seat with just this gripping violence that it comes at you with. It has this real frenetic way that it's shot and edited together that it just keeps you feeling off kilter and like you just can't quite get hold of your footing in it, and you're always waiting for the other foot to drop. You always know that there's something more to come, and it just keeps coming at you with this ferocious nature. Also, the design of the werewolves in this is gotta be up there as one of my favorites. Just the way they stand so imposing on two legs, it is super, super creepy. So yeah, Dog Soldiers is amazing, and it's an absolute cult classic. An American Werewolf in London is a 1981 horror movie, written and directed by John Landis. It stars David Naughton, Ginny Gutter, and Griffin Dunn. The plot follows two American backpackers who are attacked by a werewolf while traveling in England, causing one of them to transform into a werewolf under the next full moon.
Tomorrow night's the full moon. You're gonna change.
A what?
You'll become...
I know. A monster.
This movie absolutely changed the game of horror with its amazing practical effects during the all-too-real transformation scene. Rick Baker, who did the special effects in this, just became iconic after this, and everybody was always playing catch-up, trying to figure out a way to do even close to what he pulled off in this. It's just become such an iconic movie. But the story has roots far older than 1981. It echoes legends from Wales and northern England, where lone travelers were said to be cursed by wolf spirits after trespassing on ancient land. And the idea of a curse passed through blood, that's straight from the medieval lycanthropy trials, where people confess turning into wolves after being bitten, or being punished after committing sins. David's transformation in this is brutal, lonely, and irreversible. He's aware of his descent into becoming a monster, but completely powerless and unable to do anything about it. That slow, psychological horror, it's real lycanthropy lore in action. And I think it's just absolutely terrifying. No other movie has captured that feeling of pain and discomfort in the transformation like they do in this. You can just feel David's tendons popping and his muscles contract. You could just feel it. But to me, the thing that's the scariest about this movie is how he can't stop himself from hurting those that he loves. And he knows he's losing his humanity little by little. But for most people, this is the greatest werewolf movie ever made. I'm not gonna argue that, because that's not what today's video and list is about. So I'm not ranking these movies. Otherwise, it would definitely be at the top of the list. Wolfen is a 1981 crime horror movie, directed by Michael Wadley. It stars Albert Finney, Diane Venora, Gregory Hines, and Edward James Olmos. The story follows a city cop who has been assigned to uncover what is behind a series of brutal murders.
There's not a trace, not a speck of metal. Nothing softer could have ripped and ravaged like this.
Is it an animal?
Well, it ain't human.
So this one is technically not a werewolf movie. It's more complicated than that. And there's a few on this list that you can argue are not exactly werewolves, but they're still sort of in that ballpark. And that's kind of the idea I wanted to do in this video, is all the different branches that kind of come off of the werewolf tree. So in Wolfen, it's these mysterious, intelligent, wolf-like creatures that stalk New York City, but not exactly werewolves. It draws heavily on the concept of skinwalkers from Navajo folklore, witches who could shapeshift into animals. But more broadly, it reflects spiritual wolves as protectors of sacred land, only turning violent when the land is desecrated. And this one's scary because it's natural, it's ancient and intelligent. But the unknown I always find fascinating, but scary as hell. Because it's the things we don't understand, the things that we can't explain, we can't get our hands around. That is, to me, the most terrifying of all ideas and concepts. And it's the power of that mystical, spiritual nature, the metaphysical thing that you cannot control, you cannot stop. You can't just run a sword through it or shoot it with a gun. And that's the space that Wolfen lives in, and I think is what makes it such a special movie.
Silver Bullet, the last glimmering hope.
Silver Bullet is a 1985 horror movie. Directed by Dan Attias, it's based on the 1983 Stephen King novella Cycle of the Werewolf, and stars Gary Busey, Corey Haim, and Everett McNeil. In a small town, brutal killings start to plague the close-knit community, and a paraplegic boy is convinced the murders are being committed by a werewolf. This one is such a fun adventure. It really takes me back to being a kid, as much or more than any movie, especially the ones from this era. I just always really connected with Marty's character in this. I had a lot of challenges I had to overcome as a boy, and so I think there's that kindred spirit that I connect to in this. And this film focuses on someone that you think you can trust and should be able to trust with your life, but they end up being the true villain. And in that way, I think it mirrors real history. Because during the witch trials in France and Germany, many pious citizens were accused of being werewolves by night. And those that accused them were their leaders, friends, neighbors. Their accusers claimed their transformations were divine punishment, divine justice. And I find this one to be so scary because the killer isn't just a monster. It's the person you trust most. And what do you do when the wolf is next door? It's one of those things that you have to come to grips with in life. That sometimes it'll be a teacher or police or your family member or whoever that you think you could trust. You think they're the person that you can look to for guidance or whatever, and they end up being the one that betrays you, that stabs you in the back. And so beyond being just a fun movie, an exciting, adventurous film, it has a much deeper, powerful message to it that definitely has always resonated for me. This is without a doubt one of my very, very favorite movies from this era, and absolutely one of the very best Stephen King adaptations.
It's simple. Talangwinic, by the mere definition of the word, is a werewolf.
Were is a 2013 psychological horror movie. Directed by William Brent Bell, it stars AJ Cook, Brian Scott O'Connor, and Sebastian Roche. In France, an American attorney defends a murder suspect who has a brutish appearance and a deadly secret.
We need to stop this right now, please.
This is one of the most unique creature feature werewolf movies out there. The way it uses news footage and found footage and blends them together into being this documentary type of way just gives it a real grittiness. This one draws from the Beast of Gévaudan, a real creature that terrorized France in the 1700s. Over 100 people died, and witnesses described a wolf-like beast that walked upright and resisted bullets. And to this day, we still have no idea what they were being attacked by. This one is scary to me because of it being rooted in realism, just the way it's shot and the way it's all put together, the twists and turns. It keeps you guessing throughout this movie of never being quite sure what is reality and what is delusion, fantasy, all of that. It does a really good job of keeping you guessing. It also really goes off the rails towards the end, is very exciting, intense, a real nail biter. And it's wild to me how little this is talked about, how people love werewolf movies. They're some of the most popular movies in the horror genre, but yet this one still kind of flies under the radar and is not talked about nearly enough. But if you're a fan of werewolf type of horror movies and have never seen Whir, do yourself a favor and make this the next thing that you watch. The Cursed or 8 for Silver is a 2021 gothic horror movie, written and directed by Sean Ellis. It stars Boyd Holbrook, Kelly Riley, and Roxanne Duran. In 19th century France, a man arrives in a remote country village to investigate an attack by a wild animal. However, he soon discovers a much deeper and sinister force that has the townspeople in its grip.
The land's been cursed.
This is an atmospheric, slow burn. It's moody and stylish, well shot, and absolutely stunning to look at. And just has a real presence about it in the way that it's shot, the way it looks and feels. It focuses on colonial guilt and a creature that feels more like a demon than an animal. And this one pulls from legends like the Wendigo in Algonquian folklore, a human consumed by greed or hunger that could transform into a monstrous, skeletal, insatiable being. The Wendigo is a cautionary tale about what happens when you consume too much, including each other. And the fear in this one isn't about a full moon. It's about moral decay. You become the monster by what you do, not by what bites you. And that's why so often stories like this have to do with cannibalism and greed, you know, things like, you know, you take too much gold, you still kill a bunch of people to take gold or whatever. In this movie, it deals with things similar to that, legends and lore, and deals with things along those lines. And that's why this one, to me, pulls mostly from the Wendigo type of story. But it still pulls from other stories as well, like The Beast of Gévaudan. But I just think this is one of the most underrated horror movies in the last 10 years. It's one I've been raving about any chance I get because I think that it is special. I'm not saying it's a perfect movie, but it's unique and has a lot of really interesting layers to it in the way that it's shot, the style of it, the different directions that it goes, the different things that it incorporates as far as creatures and mythos and stuff like that. It's very unique. And so I just think it's a very special horror movie that way more people need to see. Late Phases is a 2014 horror movie, directed by Adrian Garcia Bagliano. It stars Nick DeMisi, Lance Guest, and Tom Noonan. The story is about a secluded retirement community that is plagued by mysterious attacks until a grizzled, blind war veteran moves in.
Dolores! Dolores! Dolores!
This is such a badass movie and a real fun twist on the genre. In this, the elderly and ignored fight back. And the idea of werewolves preying on the helpless and weak is tied to stories from Eastern Europe, where wolves were believed to target those forgotten by society, the sick and the old and the lonely. And I mean, growing old is scary as hell because your body is betraying you and you become unable to do the things that you were able to do in your youth. And so in a lot of ways, you feel like a prisoner in your own body. And that's where the fear lies in this movie. It's about being vulnerable in a place where no one believes you. And sometimes no one cares. And that is such a scary thing to convey in a film. And this does a great job of getting that point across in this, while still being entertaining and creepy. I mean, this movie has got some very spooky, terrifying scenes, to be honest, but it's also fun and well written with fantastic characters that you really do care about. Like I said, it's just a very unique twist on a genre that you kind of think and feel like we've seen everything done before. But this is one of those movies that shows that with a creative mind, there is always still new wrinkles and things that we can do. But this is one of the more fresh takes in recent memory on the werewolf genre, and one you absolutely should check out. Howl is a 2015 British horror movie. Directed by Paul Hyatt, it stars Ed Speleers, Sean Pertwee, and Holly Weston. When passengers on a train are attacked by a creature, they must band together in order to survive until morning.
What is it?
Run!
Back on the train, everyone!
Go, go, go! It's coming!
This is a real hidden gem. It is really a movie that's been overlooked. It is just such a fun, creepy creature feature. And this one plays more with the Dogman legend than it does traditional werewolves. The Dogman is a cryptid seen in Michigan and other forested areas in the United States. It's said to be a bipedal canine with glowing eyes, and people still report seeing them to this day. This one's terrifying to me because it focuses on the dark, being vulnerable and helpless, isolated in the woods. If you've ever been in the woods at night, this one plays on those fears. Being scared to death of what is watching you just out of sight, just beyond where the light reaches. And that takes us back to the very beginning of men telling stories in caves. It was our first form of entertainment, but also where we learned and taught each other. And we would teach our children to be aware of the dark. Don't go out there because there's monsters. There's things that we don't understand, things that can kill us and tear us apart just beyond the light of the fire. And so it's those fears that are just encoded in our being. It's those fears that we kind of pass down from generation to generation, still in our stories. Werewolves, skinwalkers, dogmen, wendigo. Each one reflects something real. The fear of violence, of nature, of ourselves. These movies don't just scare us. They tap into the legends, the stories that we have feared for centuries. But that's going to do it for me today. But I would love to hear down in the comments, what are your favorite werewolf type of horror movies? And what are some that you think I should cover on this channel? Because werewolves are some of my favorite type of horror movies. And I'm always looking for new ones because I know there's got to be some out there that I still haven't seen and covered yet. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember, guys, horror can be fun, and I'll see you all next time.